The Subaru GC8 Impreza is a bit of a rally legend, but maybe less commonly used in time attack and circuit racing. We're here with Aleck from GIR, and we're going to talk about your GC8 Impreza with some significant changes made. So Aleck, this isn't any normal GC8 Impreza. We're missing a few doors here. Can you just explain what this started life as?
Okay, so the car started life as a Type R STi. It's just a two-door Impreza from Japan. Imported something like 12 years ago as a part of like a race rally program we had going. And then it just got developed into what you see behind us.
We'll start with that stock basic car, the Type R STi. That's a 2-litre EG20.
That's correct, yeah. It's an EG20 5-speed manual, driver control center diff. Pretty fun little car. And that was the platform to sort of start working from.
Yeah, but that's a platform to start working from, but we're pretty far from that, right? And not too much of the original car remains. We'll just start at the front with the kind of most significant change. Maybe not, but in my eyes, the 6-cylinder in the front. What have we got happening up there?
Yep, so we've moved away from the EJ 4-cylinder, looking for bigger torque gains and higher top-end power. We've opted to run the 6-cylinder. It's out of a Subaru, so the beautiful thing is a lot of it is plug and play in terms of bell housing patterns, engine mount locations. So it does actually fit in the car quite easy. There are then some necessary modifications around it to help it along.
We'll get to those in a moment. We'll just focus on the engine itself first. So what engine in particular is it, and what's the capacity and so on?
Yep, so it's known as an EG33. It's a 3.3 litre, and it comes out of what's known as a Subaru SVX. So it's just a luxury sports car from the early 90s. It's the only vehicle that engine came in.
Yeah, those are a pretty rare vehicle. Was it difficult to get hold of this engine?
I was lucky. I acquired a few quite a while back, and I have contacts in Japan, and so we're able to get some in. As of late, they've become expensive and a little bit harder to get a hold of locally. I think the guys in the States have probably got a little bit more of a surplus supply there. So yeah, definitely not easy.
So no variable cam control or anything on that?
No variable cam control on this one, very basic.
And that's a NA engine from factory, not anymore obviously.
No, yeah, correct. It was an NA engine from factory running around about 10-to-1 compression standard.
And now we've got a single turbo. What's been done internally on the engines, piston, rod, crank, anything like that to handle the extra stress?
Yeah, so a lot of the internal components get replaced as with any Subaru engine performance build. It's got I-beam rods, forged pistons. It's got the closed deck CNC inserts in the blocks, oversized head studs, and then a lot of headwork too. So cams. It's moved from hydraulic followers to shimless followers, and then the typical valve spring upgrade and stuff like that.
So talking kind of power numbers, boost figures and RPM, where are we at?
Yep, so its current configuration, made to rev to 9,000-ish, 9,500 if you really wanted to. Sitting on around about 25 pounds of boost. You would expect to see somewhere in the low 600 kilowatt window at the wheels, not on a hub dyno, and anywhere up to about probably 750 kilowatts on tap if you wanted to, seeing out to around about maybe 35-40 pounds of boost. And
with that capacity increase over the 2-litre, I'm assuming everything's a lot less stress, so reliability-wise, it's a better platform than the EG20?
Playing around in the more modest boost levels, so let's say between the 20 and the 30 marker, it's a very happy engine, very, very easy going compared to an EJ producing the same power up around the 40 PSI window. But yeah, like once we do get to around that sort of 30 to 40 window, it does start to lead back to that sort of more volatile territory.
And that you talked about the RPM limit before, about 9.5 potentially. That's a pretty high limit. It's a good-looking size turbo on it. What's the kind of, when are you all in on the turbo by?
It's all in by about 45, and it pretty much just continues on. It doesn't really stop.
So that's a big meaty power band, so the 6-cylinder 3.3 really doing its job?
Yeah, correct, yep, definitely.
So controlling that, what type of ECU are we running?
Yep, so it's got an EMtron KV12 in it. That's taking control of the motor and also the transmission, which is paddle shifted.
And onto that transmission, what are we running there?
Yep, so it's got a Modena sequential transmission. The full drivetrain package is all Modena, so the front diff and the center diff, which are internal in the tranny, that's all a part of that. And then it's got a ShiftTech paddle shift unit sitting on top of it, and EMtron just obviously controls that aspect of it.
So when you're using pedal shift, and that's really just a shift request that you're using, and the engine will shift as necessary? Correct,
yep, that's right.
And on that gearbox, that's sharing the standard like Subaru drivetrain. You're still having the differential in the normal position, so the engine is moved front of the front axle?
Yeah, so with this particular car, we've tried to take the Subaru platform to the absolute limit. And when we say that, we mean it in terms of keeping the original transmission casings, the location of the differentials, and in that fact, that limits your position of the motor. It's got a lot to do with drive shaft angles and heights. We've managed to pinch, a few millimeters here and an inch there, but it is still a genuine Subaru platform under there.
And so, yeah, the engine's roughly in the same position, maybe moved back slightly. It's obviously a whole cylinder longer, being a box of 6. I see a lot of components have been moved to the rear of the vehicle. Is that to offset that weight?
Yep, correct, that's right. So hanging over an extra couple of cylinders obviously has its negative effects, and so we were looking at ways to move that weight away from the front of the vehicle and balance the car out, and we did that by moving the radiator and a few other components further back in the engine bay.
So I noticed that the radiator's at the back, the fuel cell is quite far back as well. Weight distribution is one thing. Is the polar moment of inertia something that you've considered as well for turn-in and just how the car rotates?
Correct, yeah. So we're limited on where we can put things in this car. And so certain things just had to be plonked into a place and try our luck and see how it goes, and then obviously try further develop it from there. The car's actually been really good and handles really well for considering where the components are, and obviously having them hanging over the axles the way they are. We've opted for a fairly small fuel cell, and it's only carrying a small amount of capacity of fuel. It can probably do about 4 laps here, and it's out of fuel. We've also then managed to keep the rest of the fuel system tucked right up underneath the middle of the car. So, like for instance, it's surge tank fuel pumps, filters, and all that stuff is tucked in where the original fuel tank used to be, which is actually in a really good location in the Impreza. So we've utilised that space for those components. The fuel cell is purely just a poly cell with the fuel in it.
So fairly lightweight, and that's obviously a requirement for the time attack racing it's taking part in.
Yeah, correct. Trying to minimise that weight where we can.
And back to the engine side of things, the sump, is this a dry sump or a wet sump system?
Yep, so it's running a dry sump system, something we developed in-house by using some components that are available. It's running a barn 6-stage, and then obviously the tanks run down the back of the car. So we've got obviously the length of line and stuff like that. The sump system works really well.
So having the dry sump, did that allow for lowering the engine at all, or are you still just limited by those where the front drive shafts are?
Yeah, no. So like mentioned, the engine and sort of front drivetrain of the car is definitely down and back a little bit to its original location, but it is not obviously as much as we'd like, but it is on the limit of those drive shafts. So you can expect anywhere around about, I think it's from memory, we're close to about 15 mil further back, and we're probably about 10 mil down.
And then just the rest of the transmission or drivetrain, getting back to the differential, is that a standard Subaru unit or something else?
Yeah, so the casings are standard, all the internals are Modena engineering, so everything's sort of beefed up, better material, mechanical LSDs, so yeah.
And hard to ignore aerodynamics here at World Time Attack. You got a pretty serious rear wing on this. What's kind of been the focus of the aero? How's that been developed and tested as we go?
Yeah, so we have we're lucky enough to have a family friend who is an aerodynamicist who has put in a lot of his personal time to help us develop the car. There's a CFD model out of the car. It's running a lot of simulations. The idea with the Aero was to keep it somewhat simple and keep the car usable, being able to transport it on a tandem trailer. So any bigger than what it is now, it really becomes super impractical. We sort of wanted the car to fall in between an open class and a Pro-Am class. Unfortunately, with the open class, we're just over a few of the rules there, so we got bumped into Pro-Am. So it's probably a little bit under-aeroed compared to some of them, but something we can work on in the future.
Yeah. Always room for development with something like this. The last thing I just wanted to touch on was the braking system. I noticed the PERacing sticker on the side of the car. I'm assuming there's a PERacing Engineering pedal box?
Yes, correct. It's got a PERacing Engineering pedal box. Daryl's helped us with that one, so it works fantastic. Fits beautifully.
And then the actual braking package itself, has Derek had any input into that, or have you developed that in-house?
So with the braking package itself, they essentially just AP Racing calipers and rotors. All the in-house lines and bits and pieces are made by us. Daryl did do a simulation as a part of purchasing the products through him to size the master cylinders accordingly. So we sort of start on the front foot.
And the size of the actual package itself, was that kind of an off-the-shelf package, or is that something more that you size accordingly to the weight balance of the car, because it's obviously significantly different to factory?
Yeah, correct. So we opted to go a little bit smaller on the back to minimise the weight we're carrying and obviously keep those brakes working in the efficiency range. We find a lot of the Subarus have big brake kits on the back, which are probably a little bit overkill. And at the moment, we have not found the limitation of our braking yet.
And is there running any ABS, or is no ABS?
No, it was on the cards this year, time poor, so maybe next year. Definitely something to look at.
Again, always room for development. Oh, well, thank you for your time, and if anyone wants to follow along with what you're doing, GIR and the development of the car, where can they do that?
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. It's just GotItRex. And then we have a website, it's just GotItRex.com.au.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you like that video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you're subscribed. We release a new video every week. And if you like free stuff, we've got a great deal for you. Click the link in the description to claim your free spot to our next live lesson.